Hey guys, it's John. I'm back with another video. This time I'm doing the AFC and NFC North. Same thing as last time, except two different things. One, I'm actually reading from a book instead of a random piece of paper. And two, I will be going in alphabetical order. But before I start, I got a few shoutouts I want to give out. I want to shout out to my buddy Josh Barco for giving me the new YouTube name. Thanks a lot, man. It's going to really come in handy. And I got two more for my buddy Tony Cole and my buddy Joe Ward. They helped me out with those questions last time. Thanks a lot, guys. Alright, let's start off with Baltimore. The first question is Flacco. Is he going to be back to his old self? I really hope he is, but we have to see, because he's coming off a torn ACL, and that could be tough, stepping up in the pocket, which is pretty big for a quarterback, especially a quarterback like this. And we're going to see if he's back to his old self. The second question is the other injuries, with Suggs, Perryman, Steve Smith, Taliaferro, Forsett. Are they going to be able to contribute this year? Steve Smith, this is his last year. Is he going to be able to go out with a bang? Or is he going to be affected by that all year? Because he apparently was a double rupture Achilles. And they don't even know if he's going to be ready come season time. Bashard Perryman, he had a sprained PCO. And he was out for his entire rookie year. Now he has a torn ACL. And we'll see if he's back to his old self. Suggs just returned to practice, which is a great thing for them. And let's hope that he's going to be ready to go. And same thing with Dumanville. Let's hope that he'll be ready to go. And the last thing is the pass D. Their pass D was one of the worst last year. Probably the worst pass D last year. In the beginning part. The ending, they kind of came together. But from what I saw in the first preseason game, it's going to be more of the same. Okay, Cincinnati. Of course, the number 2 receiver. They let their number 2 and number 3 receiver go. And I know they drafted Tyler Boyd in the second round, but one receiver is not going to replace that. They have to have their receiver step up, and let's see what happens. Because you got Brandon Tate, and I don't know any other receivers that they have. I really don't. So, we'll see what happens. And 2, discipline. Okay, it's discipline that cost them that playoff game. It's discipline that cost them that. Can they be disciplined enough so that they can get through a whole season without any problems, so that they can actually win a playoff game? Let's see what happens. And the safety position, mainly the free safety position, they let Reggie Nelson go. And Sean Williams, they want him to step up. Can he be that free safety? We'll soon find out. Cleveland, is RG3 going to be revived, or is he going to be like he was his last 3 years in Washington? I don't know. From what I hear, he's doing pretty good, but in the first preseason game, he had his ups, he had his downs. Let's see what happens. They're wide receivers. They have got to have a wide receiver that steps up. Josh Gordon is back at practice. He's suspended in the first 4 games. Corey Coleman, he was doing great. He got hurt a little bit. When he comes back, let's see if he's still going at that pace that he was going. And it's Roll Pryor. That's a shocker to me, because that's a great... That was my mom. Because he had a great catch in that first preseason game. Let's see if he can keep it up. I'm really rooting for this guy. And Hugh Jackson as the head coach. When he was the Raiders head coach, he had him on the brink of a playoff spot. If Jason Campbell did not get injured, they probably would have been the division winners or in a wild card spot. But Campbell got hurt, and we saw what happened. They had to trade for Carson Palmer. Didn't work out as well. They finished 8-8. He was fired. I still don't know why he was fired. I'm guessing because of the ownership change. But, you know, I'm really rooting that Hugh Jackson does a good job. If he was not the Browns head coach, I'm a Ravens fan. And, you know, if I wasn't the Ravens fan, I'd be rooting for the guy. But what do you do? And finally, the Steelers. They have to have a receiver that steps up, whether it's Marcus Wheaton, whether it's Sammy Coates, whether it's Darius Hayward-Bay. They need to replace Martavius Bryant. Sorry, I struggle with names sometimes. Yeah, they got to replace that guy. I mean, they're not really going to replace him. He's 6'4", he runs like a 4'4". Not really going to replace that, but you need to get some of that production in. And this guy really needs to stay out of trouble. And the secondary. Well, we already know who's in the secondary, but what we want to know is who's going to be playing in that secondary. You know, Artie Burns, their first-round pick, he's hurt and was struggling. Sean Davis, their second-round pick from Maryland. That's where I'm from, Maryland. That's where I'm from, the state of Maryland. So, nice job. Nice job so far, Sean. He's really showing that he can play in the secondary. He's really shown that he can contribute early. And we'll see what happens with that secondary. Let's see. William Gay, he's a veteran. Let's see if he can hold on to that starting job. And Le'Veon Bell's that third one. Okay, the third question is, when Le'Veon Bell comes off from that suspension, can he stay out of trouble? Because Bell has had problems being healthy and staying out of trouble. So he needs to stay healthy and he needs to stay out of trouble. You know, if I was his team and I'd tell him, look, you are a big part of this team. You cannot keep doing this. You have to stay out of trouble. Alright, so that's the AFC North. Now on to the NFC North. For Chicago, it's Cutler. You know, can he not make too many mistakes? You know, Cutler gets a bad rep from being a quarterback that's making too many mistakes. And let's see if he can finally learn that he needs to stop making these boneheaded mistakes, or at least not make a lot of them, and maybe they can win a few games. Second one is, who's the starting running back going to be? I mean, we know about Jeremy Langford, but is he ready to be a starter? Or is somebody else going to take it from him? And if somebody does start for that team, are they going to be is that going to be a good player? We'll soon find out, because they're replacing Matt Forte. And he was a great running back for many years for them. And finally, just the whole defense. Can this defense finally get back to what Chicago was based on, which was a strong D? You know, even in the early days, it was a strong D. You go back to guys like Doug Atkins, then you had Mike Singletary, and that entire '95 team. You had Brian Urlacher. I mean, it all starts with the linebackers. Can the linebackers, especially Danny Trevathan, can the linebackers get this D going? And in the secondary, can these corners cover on the D line? Can they stop the run and get some pressure on that quarterback? And the safeties, can they, well, basically be the center? Can the free safety be that center fielder? And can the strong safety be the thumper? You know, that's what I think makes a great secondary. You got two guys that can cover the outside receivers. You got a strong safety that can just bang, can just play in the box, play good against the run, and be able to cover that tight end, because I think the strong safety should be bigger and stronger, while the free safety should be smaller and quicker. I'll say that. Not small, but just smaller than the... Not maybe smaller than the strong safety, but can he be quicker? You know? That free safety, a guy that can just... And like I said, the center fielder, the guy that can just go up and make the interception that changes the game. That can be a game changer. You know, do they have those pieces in there? Or is this defense going to be one of the worst in the league? That's the question. Okay, Detroit. You know, Cincinnati replaced their number 2. Detroit's placing their number 1. I mean, Calvin Johnson, he was a once-in-a-generation player. I'm really going to miss watching this guy play. You know, I don't think we're ever going to see a player like this again. You know, a 6'5" guy that can run routes. He can catch. He can run after the catch. He can do a lot. This was a once-in-a-generation player, and they're really going to miss this guy. Do they have someone that can step up? You got Golden Tate. You signed Marvin Jones in free agency. Can one of those guys step up and not necessarily take over Calvin Johnson, but just be the number 1 that they need? Number 2, this O-line. Is it finally coming together? You've just drafted a tackle in the first round. Now, who's going to play left tackle? Is it going to be Reif, or is it going to be Decker, their first-round pick? I really hope it's Decker, because Riley Reif, I've seen him play. He's better on the right side than the left side. So let's hope. They got a center that's really solid. They have a few guards that they really like. One they got in the first round, and another I think was a third-round pick. But you need to check on me on that. Don't take my word on that. I'll figure that out later. In the D-line, you know, you have Ziggy Ansah, you got Haloli, but what are the other pieces? As in, who's going to be starting on the other 2 spots, and who are the key backups? You know, what makes a line great, a D-line great, is not only the starters being great, but the guys that are the reserves can come off the bench, make a few plays, and give those guys a rest. That's what makes a line great, a D-line great. You know, does Detroit have those guys? Or do they even have starters? They have to get those questions answered. Okay, Green Bay. Jordy Nelson. is he going to be healthy throughout the whole year? Jordan Nelson, he tore his ACL, and now his other knee is a little hurt, but don't worry about that just yet. I wouldn't worry unless he is not in the third preseason game. If he's not in the third preseason game, worry a little bit, because he needs to be healthy. Okay, you saw what this receiving core was. I mean, Rodgers is a great quarterback, but he can't do it all. You know, the receiving core really did not give him much help. Let's see. Nelson is their number one receiver. If he's healthy, they will be a great receiving core again. Let's see if that happens. Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy made huge strides just getting in shape. You know, he was out of shape last year. He wasn't as effective as he was his first 2 years. Let's see if he can be back to that 1,000-yard rusher and show opposing defenses why he's that number one running back for the Green Bay Packers. And finally, the linebacking core, because Clay Matthews was playing middle linebacker, well, inside linebacker, the past 2 seasons. And now they're saying that they want him back on the outside, but they didn't do anything to help him out with that. You know, they didn't get an inside linebacker in free agency. They didn't draft one in the draft. So what do you expect to do? Are you expecting one of these guys that are already on your team to step up and be the inside linebacker? That's probably what they're doing, and let's just see. You know, I really hope Clay Matthews is back on the outside. He's better at that. He's a pass rusher, but he's also great within the run. And he can't do that in the inside linebacker as much if he's on the outside. So I really hope he's back on the outside. I really hope they don't have to put him on the inside anymore. And let's see what happens. Okay, finally Minnesota. The first one's easy. Can Bridgewater take the next step? Bridgewater, I think, is their franchise quarterback. I think he will be the face of their franchise someday. You know, he's still a young guy. I mean, he only played 3 years at Louisville, and he was a true junior coming out of college. And he was like 21, 22 when he came to them in the first place. So he has a lot of room to grow, and I really think he's that face, but he has to take the next step. He's got to be the leader on that team. He's got to have more than 14 touchdown passes. You know, and he showed it in the first preseason game. Let's see if he continues. I want to see what he can do. I really like Bridgewater, and I really hope he comes through. The second thing, Peterson. Does he have a few more years left? Look, we all know Peterson's a great running back, but he's like 30, 31 years old, and that's when running backs tend to slow down. Now, I know what you're thinking. Peterson is the exception to the rule. He has to prove that. You know, if Minnesota wants to succeed, they need to still have this guy while their young quarterback is still growing. You know, and once Peterson, and hopefully if Peterson still has a few years left, once he's done, then Bridgewater will be able to take over. But if Peterson is going to be done after this year, or if he's done during the year, it might be tough for Minnesota to get the playoff spot. And that brings us to the third question. Can they compete in this division again? I think if everything goes well, if Bridgewater takes the next step, if his receivers, well, he's got plenty of good receivers. I mean, he's got Stephon Diggs, another Maryland player. Good job representing Maryland last year. You have, and you just drafted Laquan Treadwell. You have Charles Johnson. And let's see what Cordell Patterson can do. I really want to see if he can become not necessarily a starting receiver, but a solid receiver. I want to see if he can become a solid receiver for them. You know, they took him in the first round, and he hasn't shown that he was worth that first-round pick. So let's see if they can compete again. Let's see if that old line comes together. Let's see if Matt Khalil can prove that he deserves to be their left tackle. Let's see if that D-line can continue to do what it's been doing. Let's see if that linebacking core can continue to grow, especially with those two young pieces in Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. And with the veteran Chad Greenwell in his last year, let's see if they can continue to do what they do. And the secondary, you have a young guy starting there. You have a veteran that's there, and a guy and a former first-round pick that's right behind him that's ready to take over once he's done. You have one of the best free safeties in this league. Say what you want about the contract that he just got, but he is a really good safety. And strong safety, let's see if they have a solid guy there that can do. that can just do what he's told to do. You know, I really hope they can compete. And we shall see. I think they will if everything goes right. Or if most things go right. Not everything goes right in a season. Just as most things can go right, it should be fine. Okay, that's all that's 3 questions for the NFC North and the AFC North. Okay, now I know what happened with Sheldon Rankings with that broken fibula, I think it was. And I'll get to that when I do the NFC South. I'll talk about that when I get to the NFC South, because that's really going to play in with one of the questions that I have for them. And see you next time.